Okay, thanks to James Baker and Stuff website for preparing this for us. Title of today's video is Election 2020 Port Waikato Candidates for Local MP. They're stating that this is everything we need to know ahead of the 2020 general election, which will be held on October 17. The Kiwis will be able to decide who will lead the country from now until 2023. Also have their chance to have their say on legalizing cannabis and euthanasia. The vote was originally due to be held on September 19, but was pushed back after this latest pandemic. So you'll still have 2 weeks to cast your vote. Because polling booths will be open on October 3, that'll be on Saturday. And New Zealand uses the MMP system, which means each and every one of us will get 2 votes. One is for a political party, the other is for an MP to represent our local area. The percentage of the vote a party gets determines how many seats they have in Parliament. And they also get a seat for each electorate, i.e. the local area they win. So if a party wins a majority of the votes, they form the next government. If no single party gets a majority, they can form a coalition with other parties. And you must be a New Zealand citizen or a permanent resident to vote and be aged over 18. So here's everything you need to know according to this article by Stuff about the candidates running to be Port Waikato's next MP. Through the mixed, as I said, it'll be October 17, through the mixed member MMP voting system, those enrolled to vote can vote for the party they wanted. So why does the MP matter? The person elected will be the voice for your region in Parliament. If you're having trouble getting entitlements or dealing with government departments, they can help. If your community needs funding for certain projects or activities, or there isn't enough health care in the area, the elected MP can step in and help. So to be elected, the candidate needs to secure the most votes. So what regions are part of the Port Waikato electorate? Well, it replaces the previous electorate of Honua for the 2020 general election. The new seat includes a substantial chunk of what is now the Waikato electorate. It retains Pukekohe, Waiku, Clark's Beach, Glenbrook, Awitu, and picks up Tukau, Onawero, Port Waikato, Pokeno, Maramua, Mercer, Mary, and Te Kaupara. It stretches from the Manuka heads of the southern entrance to the Manuka Harbour, south past the settlement of Port Waikato to Matira and Pepe, and inland to Mangatawiri and the Maramua Forest. So here are the candidates for Port Waikato. First of all, we have Baljit Kaur. She represents Labour. She lives with her mum in Pokeno, which is now part of the newly named electorate of Port Waikato. She's called New Zealand home since migrating here in 2002. She works as a senior medical underwriter with Southern Cross Health Society. Her previous work experience includes being a caregiver in the aged care sector, both in Australia and New Zealand. Aged care and transport are 2 of Baljit's major areas of focus. She wants to make continued progress in the aged care sector as the number of senior citizens is predicted to grow significantly. Baljit has heard the electorate's need for better public transport linked to Auckland. She's part of New Zealand Six Women's Association, an organisation that provides support for women and children who have been victims of domestic violence. She's also a member of the Business Professional Women PPW Franklin Club. Next up, we have Mark Ball, representing Heartland New Zealand. a former mayor and police officer, and a long-time member of the Pukekohe community. Mark Ball will stand for the new Heartland New Zealand Party in Port Waikato seat in 2020. Mark served with the New Zealand Police for nearly 18 years, after which he was elected Mayor of Franklin District, a position he held for 2 terms until the advent of the Auckland Super City. In the wake of the current pandemic, Mark believes that local businesses and employers need to be given the help they need to recover. He has a focus on upgrading roads and of national significance, improving national power grid, the health of our rivers, and availability of digital communication across rural New Zealand. Mark is married to Catherine and they have 3 adult children, all residing in Pukekohe. Next up we have Ian Johnson. He represents One Party. Ian Johnson is the One Party candidate for Port Waikato. Born and raised on a dairy farm near Waikato, Johnson comes from a politically active family, married to Joy, with 3 adult children and 6 grandchildren. Ian spent 9 years working as a dairy farmer, 5 of those as a shear milker. Ian also spent several years in sales and marketing roles, rising to be New Zealand agri-products manager and sales and marketing with a multinational company. Ian also spent 9 years as a real estate salesperson, becoming a committed Christian at age 17. Ian has also leadership roles in churches in the Waikato and Auckland regions, establishing and pastoring several churches over a 30-year period. Next up we have Ian Cummings. He's running as an independent. Ian Cummings will be running as an independent candidate for Waikato electorate. Cummings says he is a strong advocate for free enterprise and believes the private and voluntary sector, not the government, is where the capacity for innovation, creative thought and prosperity comes from. And although he's concerned about climate change, he prefers an approach that also boosts economic development and protects property rights. Cummings is the General Manager of Weary Oil Services and a board member of Pukekohe Christian School. Stephen Senn, representing a new Conservative Party. He's the candidate for Port Waikato. Senn grew up in semi-rural Pukekohe, where he completed school. His father was a returned World War II serviceman, and his mother was a teacher. They own a specialist automotive business. Senn has spent 28 years in a business career that spans manufacturing, engineering, IT infrastructure, and financial services. He's a board member for a local church, an area group manager for 2 Waikato business networking groups, and the chairman on the board of trustees for a farm and youth-focused charity. He is concerned about legislation being rushed through without due process and central government policy contributing to the difficulty and cost in doing business, especially for primary industries. Next we have Andrew Bailey, representing National. He's been selected as National's candidate to contest this Port Waikato electorate at the 2020 election. Port Waikato replaces his current electorate of Hanua under boundary changes confirmed by the Representation Commission in April. In 2014 and 2017 election, Andrew was elected to Parliament as the National MP for the Hanua electorate. In the 52nd Parliament, Andrew is currently National Spokesperson for Revenue, Commerce, State-owned enterprises, small business and manufacturing, and Associate Spokesperson for Finance. He is also a member of the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee and is co-chair of the Middle East Africa Parliamentary Friendship Group. Bailey is formerly an officer in the New Zealand Territorial Army and British Parachute Regiment. Before entering Parliament, Andrew initially trained as an accountant before working with merchant banks in New Zealand and London for a period of 10 years. After returning to New Zealand, he co-founded a merchant bank offering corporate advisory and capital markets advice to a range of government entities, local authorities, and corporate clients. Next we have Dave King, representing the ACT Party for Port Waikato. It mentions that Dave King is a sales engineer dealing in industrial compressed air. He has a keen interest in sports shooting and lives with his wife in Tuakau. Next up we have Bill Wilson. He represents the Green Party. and he's a candidate for Port Waikato electorate. Doesn't give any other information. Jamie MacGregor, he's representing the Advanced Public Party, candidate for Port Waikato electorate. No further information. Lucille Rutherfurd, and she's representing the New Zealand Outdoors Party. Lucille Rutherford is the New Zealand Outdoors Party candidate for Port Waikato. And the Independent, last but not least, we have Nick Pack will be running as an independent candidate also for the Port Waikato electorate. Okay, I hope that gives you a little bit of insight about the election and help you to make a decision coming October 17. Thank you very much for listening.